when I first moved to Japan, and a little bit embarrassed to say this, but I thought I knew Japanese pretty well. And then my first experience going to the 7-Eleven, like I freaked out because they talked so fast and they were asking me something about some kind of promotion that they were doing. I had no idea what the guy was talking about. I was just like, hi.
XQ Sumimasen.
Welcome to another episode of the XQ Sumimasen Podcast. I'm your host, Saul, and joining me today is Devin Yoshimoto again. What's up, bro?
Hello. I love your t-shirt.
Oh, yeah. This is a omiyage or souvenir from my student who went to Okinawa. Gotta love the spam, bro.
When's the last time you ate spam?
Ah, man. My mom brought a case of spicy spam last year, and I probably finished it in
last year.
May or April. So I haven't eaten anything since.
Man, they don't have spicy spam in Japan, do they?
And they only have, or maybe in Okinawa, but in the mainland, there's only the regular one and the reduced sodium.
Yeah.
They don't even have the spam light. It's the reduced sodium spam.
Man, I'd love to eat spicy spam again.
But yeah, so today's episode, we're talking about like when we first moved to Japan versus how life is like for us here in Japan now. What were your motivations for moving to Japan?
Okay, well, the number one motivation for me was, the number one conscious motivation, I guess I should say, is I wanted to speak Japanese. So I've always had an interest in like learning languages. Well, I mean, actually, I think I only had an interest in learning Japanese because I would say because I'm half Japanese and half Filipino, but my desire to learn Japanese was is even now much stronger than learning Tagalog. And maybe it has to do with just like how many times I had visited Japan at the time and just really loving it.
Yeah.
And Japanese seeming like a super mysterious, kind of really far away from English language compared to Tagalog. I think because a lot of Filipinos spoke English when I was growing up. Right. So it just seemed like a really cool language to learn. So I think that was my main motivation for wanting to move here and live here, because I knew I didn't want to learn it by myself overseas or just by coming here for a few weeks or months at a time.
So what was the deciding factor then? Like what was the thing that made you say like, okay, I'm going to do this?
What it was overlap of different goals that I had at the time that were kind of coming together, and the timing kind of seemed right. So I was living in Boston, Massachusetts at the time. I was working at this company that was this internet company. I kind of sort of felt like I was in the wrong position. It was a internet shopping company, e-commerce company. So, and I was doing like more like managing the different vendors and the different sellers, managing their inventory and getting them set up in the system. That was that job at the time, but I kind of realized I wanted to do something different. I wanted to do something a bit more creative, do marketing, do writing at the time. And then since that was happening, and I was also feeling this strong urge to kind of like, learn Japanese also, but then be more creative in the work. And I was like, all right, why don't we just completely start from the beginning? So I decided to quit everything. All that stuff kind of came together, and I thought, all right, I'll try to bring it together somehow. And I guess my first step is to move to Tokyo. Yeah.
And you moved here as a tourist, right? In the beginning?
Yeah. Well, I moved here just on like, what do you call that? Tourist visa, just to kind of meet friends. Well, yeah, you guys, you and Kato. Kato was the first person I called when I decided to move to Japan. So when I moved here on a tourist visa, I checked with him because he worked for a share house company that would let people stay for indefinite periods. Like if you wanted to stay for a little while, non-contract, non-year, like non-committed kind of contract.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm looking for a place to stay. Can I stay there for a few months at least, and try to find a job, basically.
Yeah. Job. Once you said job, I just thought of black jobs. Like, what is a black job? Have you been keeping track of the election? Trump was saying that all these immigrants are coming in and taking black jobs because he was being interviewed by by like a black show or something like that.
Yeah.
And then as soon as he said that, the interviewer was like, "Can you
What's a
define what
black
a
job?"
black job is?" And then he
What did he
kind of
say?
like deflected the question.
Well, those jobs, those
Yeah,
are great
he's like
people.
jobs that pretty much anybody can do. And then that was already derogatory, probably not unintentional, but yeah, getting back to what you were talking about. So the
Yeah.
deciding factor for you was you just wanted to make the move, and you talked to Cato, and then you got in touch with the share house, and they
Yeah.
said it was cool for you to do it. So you just decided to like,
Yeah, it's like I sent Kato an email. I said, "Hey, I decided I'm moving to Japan. Can you help me out?" And that was it.
Yeah.
Like I didn't really think about anything else. What was the decision-making process for you then?
for me, it was, so I was living in Saipan with my wife. So we were already married, living in Saipan. And then
Yeah.
I noticed that because where we live is in the south, or the southernmost part of Saipan.
Mhm.
And it's just dirt roads. And then my wife wasn't comfortable driving. We have no neighbors. There's no supermarkets nearby, no convenience stores.
Mhm.
And she doesn't have a lot of friends who speak Japanese. And to begin with, there's not that many Japanese people in Saipan anyways.
Yeah.
I kind of decided, maybe we should just try moving to Japan so that way you can be around your family. And I tend to be able to meld wherever I go.
Yeah.
And so I decided, we're moving to Japan. I didn't even ask her. I was like, we're going to move to Japan. Give me at least 3 to 6 months to figure this out. And then my plan was actually to move like a year or 2 or 3 later. And then I contacted my father-in-law, and he was like, "You guys can stay with us. You can come now." And we were like, okay. So I just took him up on that offer and just moved like within 3 months after that.
What year was that?
2011,
11.
end of 2011. So
Yeah.
the deciding factor was pretty much just, I don't want to see my wife being so lonely all the time,
Yeah.
especially
yeah.
when I'm at work. But yeah, so let's move on. Of course, you had expectations before you came. And of course, some of those expectations were actually wrong. What did you expect Japan to be like versus the reality when you arrived?
The first thing to say, I think, is that I had been to Japan many, many times since I was little. And
okay.
then in college, I studied abroad in Kobe, Japan with a host family for 2 months. And I came back after to visit them. So in terms of like what I was expecting environment-wise, it was not different at all from what it was when I actually got here, because I knew and had been here many times. The big difference, I think, looking back now, I remember, is I had this image of people in Tokyo, people in Japan, people in Tokyo especially, of being like, and the culture in general, of being like zombie sort of ant people. And I remember writing this down like to myself in like a journal one time. Like, oh, I'm moving to Japan where the people are like just zombie ants running around, working themselves to death and not having sex.
Yeah.
I think that was my 2 biggest stereotypical images I had in my mind. And moving and living here, it took many, many years of living, but slowly and consistently, that image just chipped away in my head.
Okay.
To where it is today, where it's very different. And I don't think that at all anymore.
Wow, that's like almost the opposite of what I expected. Because
Really?
before I moved to Japan, right? Or actually even before I met my wife, I was going to Japan, to Osaka specifically, multiple times. And there was even that time that you and I stayed for over 3 months there, right?
Yeah.
Not over, I guess, because they have that 90-day limit. But while I was there, I was like, man, Japan is so awesome. The food is great. The people are super open and super friendly. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. I want to live here.
Yeah.
And then I moved back to Saipan, met my wife, got married. And when I decided to move to Japan, I was like, it's going to be the same.
Yeah.
Not expecting that Tokyo would be a very different beast from Osaka.
Yeah.
So like when I arrived in Tokyo and I started trying to talk to people, like I would approach people in Osaka like randomly on the street and just say hello, and they'll be so friendly back. But if you do that here in Tokyo, they kind of look at you like you're crazy, man. It's like, oh my God, stranger danger is looking at me or talking to me. And especially if they're female, they'll kind of run away. Or like sometimes I'll be walking on the sidewalk. And if there's a woman walking towards me, she'll cross the street and walk on the opposite side. This only happened to me a couple of times, but it happened to me in the beginning. So I was just like, why are people so afraid of me? Like, and then I realized it's just that Kansai people are more open than Tokyo people are. Yeah. So that was my expectation, and the reality was totally off. It depends on where you move to.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess maybe the reason why it's different, maybe I'm thinking is like, okay, maybe it's different aspects we're talking about. Because like the thing I was going to say was what started to change my perception was doing the English conversation school. That was my first job, basically, coming out here in Japan.
Yeah.
And I started to, because it's your job, you're talking to people one-on-one, talking about their lives and just getting to know them as people. So I guess that started to chip away at my image of like everybody's just sort of this robotic thing. But I think when I listen to you talk about like the external sort of environment, even now when I think of it, I misspoke earlier. I still do think that people are robotic in Tokyo.
Okay.
On the outside. But I've come to meet a lot of people and meet a lot of different people. And I've learned that, they are just regular people. But on the outside, yes, it is still robotic and like
Wait, can
zombie
you clarify
people.
what you mean by on the outside?
I think in contrast to like what I think it's like in Osaka, or even what I think it's like here in Yokohama. Because moving around in Shinjuku and Shibuya and like Otemachi, where I used to work, people are just head down, move, go to work, ignore everything around you. And here in Yokohama, it's very different pace and atmosphere where people are just seem like they're just living. It really feels like just people are just people here. So I think that's the difference. Like on the outside, people are just move in Tokyo every single day, every single hour.
That's generally like how it is in Japan. It's like the further you get away from the city, the more human people are.
Yeah.
With the exception of Osaka, because like even like deep in the city, like everybody's still cool.
Yeah. It's very different. So I guess it just depends on the area.
Yeah. And then just for clarification for anybody who's wondering, like, why is it that Osaka is like that? And why is Tokyo the way it is? I've spoken to a couple people, of course, Japanese people. And the answer that made the most sense is that people from Osaka are mostly people from that area. So everybody has like a similar mentality and they kind of just know each other. It's like a local place.
Yeah.
But in Tokyo, that's where everybody moves to make money. Yes. So it's like, it's a blend of so many different people from around the country. And so people don't know each other. Of course, they're more reserved and less likely to be open to strangers here in Tokyo. In my case, at least.
That's exactly right. I'm so sure that that's correct. And it's like people moving to Tokyo and just living here. You're here to get something in your life. You're here to advance. So you don't care about anything else except what's helping you advance in your life and your career and your goals or whatever.
Yeah, so let's move on to the language barrier. So let me start with me in this one. So when I first moved to Japan, and a little bit embarrassed to say this, but I thought I knew Japanese pretty well. And then my first experience going to the 7-Eleven, like I freaked out because they talked so fast and they were asking me something about some kind of promotion that they were doing. I had no idea what the guy was talking about. I was just like, hi. And then he gave me my stuff and then looked at me with like a question mark kind of face. Yeah. And I just walked out because I was like, I don't know what you're saying. I'm just going to leave. And then ever since from that point, for like probably like the first few months that I was there, I was kind of hesitant to go to the 7-Eleven or to the convenience store because I was worried they might have a promotion that they asked me about or some kind of thing is going on they asked me about and I'm not going to be able to answer.
So just to clarify, was this in Osaka or was this in Tokyo after you moved with your wife?
This is in Tokyo. So I'm talking about after I moved to Tokyo with my family. But then whenever my father-in-law came home, he would always be like, "Hey, Solomon, let's drink." And I would drink with him. And he does not speak English at all, like zero. Even when he pronounces hello, it's haro, like not even he, it's ha. So super doesn't know English at all. But being like I almost said Japanese, but being like at his level, at his position, at his job, he's pretty high level. So he just speaks, and he speaks at his own pace, and he doesn't wait for you. And you kind of just have to keep up.
Wow.
So from the very first day, I would just have my phone, and we didn't have like a good translation app at the time. So I just used what I had. It was just like some dinky translator app, and I would listen to him and like really fast type it down before he got impatient with me. And then over time, I started to be able to speak better. And then eventually I was like, okay, let me try this convenience store thing again. And I went, and like the first maybe like 10 times, they never asked me about any kind of promotion. So if I order food, they just say in Japanese, "Would you like me to warm it up for you?" And then that one, of course, I knew since Osaka. So that was no problem.
Yeah.
And then when they finally did ask me for a promotion, or for if I wanted to do something with their promotion, for example, like sometimes they give you a box that has a hole in it, and you're supposed to put your hand in and pull out a coupon, and then you can win like a free drink or like a free snack or something.
Yeah.
And no hesitation, I just knew what to do thanks to my father-in-law.
Dude, that's like trial by fire, man.
Exactly, man. Because there's no, like, he's not even giving me hints as to what he's saying. It's just say it. Do you understand? No? Never mind. I'll move on.
Oh, man, that's hard. Just thinking about that makes me nervous already.
Yeah, but it was awesome, man. So now, like, my level of Japanese, I'm surprised, man. I was in the taxi with my mom the other day. And then, she and I were talking about, I don't remember. So she and I were talking. And then the taxi driver interrupts me and he says, I just heard you say Hanamasa. Because we were talking about the supermarkets. Yeah. I just heard you say Hanamasa. So you guys are going to go to Kasai Station. You guys going to go shopping in Japanese? And I was like, yeah, we're going to go shopping down there. And he was like, would you like me to drop you closer to those stores? And I said, no, actually I live in Kasai, and I just want you to drop us to that area. And then we'll figure out what we're going to do from there. All in Japanese.
Yeah.
And then he starts telling me about like his life. So he's like, wow, your Japanese pronunciation is so perfect. Like it sounds like you're native. And I was like, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I learned it from my Japanese friends. And also my father-in-law, I have to thank him because like he made me learn fast.
Yeah.
And then he was like, that's good. And he was like, my brother, he's an astronaut at NASA. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. And he was like, this is a secret, but I'm not supposed to actually tell you this. And then he started telling me, I probably shouldn't say, because he said it was like some kind of confidential thing that people are not supposed to know about astronauts. But I was surprised to be able to understand what he was saying, especially when he started talking about NASA and he was talking about like technical things. Yeah, I can't get into the specifics, but it was really, I was happy to be able to follow.
How do you say astronaut in Japanese? Do you remember?
Uchu hikoshi.
Wow. Yeah, because I remember hearing that a few times, or just seeing astronauts on TV, but I can't even think what astronaut is in Japanese. Uchu hikoshi.
So uchu is space. Uchu is space, and then hikoshi. I don't know what I'm guessing. Like for some reason, hiko makes me think of like move, like hikoshi, right?
Yeah. It's cool because I guess he heard you guys speaking English, and he's like, just wanting to, show you guys around. Hospitality, Japanese hospitality.
Yeah, that guy was really, really nice. So that was my experience with the language barrier in the beginning. What about you?
One of the biggest frustrations I can remember is having to go to the city hall. Having to go to city hall by myself to ask about the status of certain documents, requesting documents. So I just remember clearly one time having to go there early on when I was first here, first few 1, 2, 3 years maybe. Yeah. Going there and I just remember doing my best to communicate and just sweating like profusely. Sweating so much, like right in front of the staff. even though they knew like, okay, you don't speak Japanese, they're trying to be helpful. But man, I was just I guess I was just thinking so much. And I just remember sweating so much and really hating that experience of like just trying to make like a smooth interaction.
Yeah.
And just not being able to do it. I remember like really not wanting to go into restaurants that looked interesting, that I just wanted to just try out by myself because I was afraid of not having a smooth interaction with the staff.
Wow.
I was like, man, I don't even want to deal with this. Like, I'm just going to go to the places that I already know. Even though I wanted to, I was curious. Yeah. So those are the early experiences I remember just that stick out in my head of just being like, it's tough. It's exhausting.
So you had a similar experience to mine then?
Well, I didn't have a father-in-law at the time who would just drill me.
No, I mean the feeling intimidated by like basic interaction.
Yeah. Feeling intimidated, just feeling like just choosing not to do it because it's just not convenient.
That connects perfectly to, for example, I want to talk about what was it like getting your first job? Like the process to it. So like, for example, in my case, so when I first moved to Japan, I was just teaching like private lessons at like cafes and stuff like that with my wife's friends and stuff. Just trying to get a feel for, is it feasible? Is it something that I can do that I can actually, be able to live off of? Long story short, no. The answer is no. But one thing that I did realize after a while was, like I have to get a job now. I have no other choice. And then perfectly when I was looking for a job, I don't know, like fate just like threw me a bone. And I got contacted by an old friend and he was like, hey, I know this person that's looking for someone who can teach English and you're perfect. I mean, you want to at least do the interview. So I went to the interview and the people were really friendly. The head teacher was also like really nice and giving me pointers and everything like that. So I was like, wow, I really like the environment here. Let me try it out. So I said yes. Or they wanted to hire me on the spot. So I said yes. And then I was there for 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was my first job.
That was just through a connection. Somebody you knew that person at the school.
Yeah, he knew the manager and hooked me up with an interview.
How were you looking for jobs at that time? Was it like just looking online or just trying to talk to people?
Yeah, like I found, the Dai Job and like they have all those the sites that when everybody wants to come to Japan, they see those first. So I went to those and I looked at the advertisements and so many of them were outside of Tokyo or like really far from where I lived. And then when I got contacted by my friend, he said it was 1 station away from where I lived. So I was like, hell yeah, I'll do the interview. That's like a 45-minute walk.
Yeah.
Or with bicycle, that's like 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah, like for me, I mean, I was going to say, because it was similar to me, or basically the same to me, because my first job was at the English conversation school. And, I was here on just the tourist visa and I was just looking, how can I get interviews while I'm actually here in the city? And I think, it was just those job boards. I think I'm even thinking like gaijinpot.com. Those kinds of sites. And there's all these advertisements when you're just Googling like news articles or like jobs in Japan. So they all just funnel you to those sites. And I just was looking for, so I interviewed at the big ones too. I interviewed at GABA and what are the Nova or something like that. And those were big ones where you need to be in a suit, I guess, when you come in for the interview. And I just remember thinking like, wait a minute, I don't have a suit. And my mindset at the time was like, I kind of came from like in Boston, I was like working at startup internet companies. So I really like the opposite of corporate kind of culture. But then here in Japan, especially at the big English conversation schools, the big main ones, they really want you to be like, look professional. Yeah. So when you go in for the interview, they say business attire. And I was like, man, I don't even have them. I'm just going to wear jeans. And then I went there and then I think they even like I think they even kicked me out before the interview started or something. They're like,
Wow.
yeah, you not kick me out. I think I just remember, okay, no, I was the only one there in jeans for sure. There was like 5 or 6 other people. And then I think they did like the first sort of seminar for everyone who's here for a job. Let's just tell you the basics before we even get you to talk one-on-one. And then I think after we finished that, I didn't even get a call back or an email back or anything.
Wow.
And I think it was probably because I was wearing jeans. Yeah. But then, so I was looking on those websites, and then I found the English conversation school that I eventually started working at. And it was more of like it wasn't the big firms. It was more of like a smaller company.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, I kind of vibe more with like smaller companies anyway. So yeah, I just applied. I went in for the interview, and yeah, I just kept going for another interview until they offered me the job. And the visa, the working visa, which was the most important thing.
Yeah. I don't think I got a suit until I was here for like 3 years. Because like when I went to my interview, I wore jeans. I wore jeans, a t-shirt, and like a casual blazer. And yeah, the boss was really nice. What about finding your first place to live? Like in my case, I super lucked out because my coworker, actually the head teacher of my school, owned a mansion, right? He owned his own condo. And then he was moving to a new place and he offered it up to me at a very good price. Wow. And so all we had to do was just say yes or no. We didn't have to pay any kind of like key money or anything. We just paid the deposit. Yeah. And then I think we had to pay the middleman. I don't know, the management agency. Yeah. We had to pay them, I think, like a month worth of rent. And then we had to pay the deposit. And then we had to pay the first month. Yeah. Yeah, everything was simple. And then setting up utilities, my wife did that. So I didn't have any part of that. What about you?
Yeah, for me, I lived in a share house. So, I don't know if we have to like explain what share houses are, but they're basically like communal, managed dormitories, almost like living spaces, communal living spaces managed by a company where people share the kitchens and the toilets, but you have your own room and you have a shared living room and stuff. So I did that. I lived there so our buddy Cato worked at the company where I ended up staying at one of their share houses. I lived there for 3 years, and then I moved to another one, same company but a different house for 2 or 3 years. And it's great because you just pay one flat fee and you don't have to worry about utilities. You don't have to worry about water, electricity, gas. You don't have to worry about internet. It's all included. You just pay rent plus utilities to the company.
Wait, who's your internet provider?
Rakuten Mobile. Rakuten Turbo. Yeah, that's their Wi-Fi service.
Who was your internet provider back then?
I don't even know. what.
Oh, you just used the Wi-Fi that was in the house?
Yeah. You just plug it in, plug into the wall, plug your router into the wall. Buy your own router, plug it into the router, plug it into the wall, and then you get to go. And it's all you can use. That was the craziest thing. My air conditioner was on almost all the time in the summer. And your bill is the same.
That's awesome. Because the aircon bills can get pretty high, man.
Yeah.
But I want to go off on a short tangent talking about like setting up internet. Because when I first moved here, I signed up for au Hikari.
Oh, yeah.
So I signed up for au Hikari. Everything was good. Internet speed was fast. And then this one day, I was walking around Big Camera, which is for people who haven't been to Japan yet. It's just like this really big electronics store. And then when I was walking around, these internet provider staff kept approaching me. And then they were like saying, one of them said, if you switch from your internet provider to our internet provider, you won't have to do any kind of like hardware switch up or anything like that. And we'll give you 40,000 yen, which was $400 at the time, worth of points for Big Camera. And I was like, man, the points sound great, but I want cash. And then I was with a friend at the time, and the friend said, dude, there's this shop called Daikokuya where you can bring those points to them, and for a 10% fee, they will switch it out or they will exchange it for cash. And I was like, I turned around, I was like, okay, let's do it right now. So I switched out for this company and it was called OCN. And then they gave me the 40,000 yen in points, like a gift card basically.
Yeah.
And then I went straight to the Daikokuya and exchanged it, and I got $360 back, or 36,000 yen back.
Nice.
And then I just went shopping like right after that.
Yeah.
And then eventually one day, like when I was getting a new smartphone at Docomo, because my carrier is Docomo, the staff was like, what carrier are you using for your internet? And I was like, OCN. And he goes, how much are you paying per month? I tell him the price, and he was like, and then he took out his calculator and he was like, you can save like $2 to $3 a month if you switch to Docomo, and we'll give you points on your Docomo credit card. So you'll actually be able to build up your points over time and just be able to go shopping. And I was like, oh, that sounds awesome. Can you do that for us right now? And he was like, yeah. So he did it. Again, we didn't have to change any hardware.
So you're just switching and like collecting points?
Yeah. So they asked us to make like a credit card. We don't even have to use the card. They just make the credit card for us. And then it accumulates points.
Yeah.
And then Docomo points can be used at so many different places. Like you can use them at Lawson, you can use them at McDonald's. So like once a year, we'll get like bulk points. So I would say like every year we probably make at least like $100 worth of points, because Docomo is expensive. So it's expensive, but you get the points back. And then the thing I like about Docomo is the coverage is much wider than, for example, SoftBank or AU. So like your signal will never drop.
Yeah.
Because I had an iPad, a SoftBank iPad before. And when I bring it up to our apartment, like the signal drops to 0 and I have to connect to Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So I was like, forget SoftBank. I'm doing completely all Docomo. And then even when I go deep into the country, the signal is still good.
Yeah.
So I'm Docomo all the way. This show is not sponsored by them, by the way. Just saying. But yeah, that's the tangent I wanted to go on. What about navigating trains, dude? Because when I first came here back in 2011, there was no like app in English that made it easy to navigate the train system. They only had this one Japanese app called NaviTime. And then I think Apple Maps didn't exist at the time. And then Google Maps did not have navigation function. It was just, here you are, that's where you want to go. But you couldn't.
What year was that?
2011.
Wow. Okay.
So I had to use NaviTime. And the way I got around was trying my best to remember what a certain kanji meant. So like before I left my house, I would ask my wife, what does this say? And then she'll tell me and I'll be like, okay, that means that. And I did that like every day. Because like I said, I was teaching at cafes when I first arrived, right? And I did that every day, multiple times a day. And then eventually I just started to be able to read the kanjis. But in the beginning, it was really, really hard, especially when the student wanted to study at a place that I had to like change trains. Because sometimes, they have the rapid trains that come. And if the rapid comes and you get on it, it might not go to the station that you want to go to. It might just pass it. So a lot of times I had to like, I would get on the rapid, go beyond the station I wanted to go to the opposite one, and then try to figure out, does this mean rapid or not? Because it wouldn't be in English. It was all in kanji.
Did you ever end up missing a lesson, or did you give yourself like 2 hours in advance every time to try to get somewhere at that time?
I always made sure to be there early. That was that's just a thing that I like to do.
Yeah. So you got to give yourself a lot of buffer at that time.
Yeah. And it was fun. It's like adventuring.
But for me, like, so I was going to say, I don't even ever remember honestly having that much trouble. I mean, maybe I wasn't going around so much at that time, but when I first came here, it was Google Maps 2014. And I don't remember having any issues. I mean, like, of course, there are like minor issues, like just not knowing the name of the station or missing some things, but I don't ever remember it being like a really big struggle.
Yeah, so I think you got in just when they started adding those features to it.
Yeah, it must have been.
But anyways, let's move on. So, did you have any like surprising or challenging cultural differences? in the beginning when you first got here? Because you said you loved Japan already, like before you came. But was there anything that you figured out after you came and you're like, uh-oh?
The biggest thing that I would say is, it's not even culture shock, I guess, but it's riding the trains when it's super packed. That's not even culture shock. That's not Japan culture shock. That's like Tokyo culture shock. Because I just remember, man, there was one thing I can say, like when I was really young, probably like 6 or 7. No, not 6 or 7. Like 10 or 12 years old. I remember coming here with my best friends, really young, straight from Saipan. And I remember trying to ride the trains with them. They had already been living here for a while. Not 10 or 12, maybe a little bit older, even high school or something. And it was a super packed train where it's like people are spilling out through the doors right before the door is about to close. And they were like pushing their way in and they were like looking back at me saying, hurry up, get on. I was like, dude, there's no way I'm getting on this train. And I was like panicking. And that memory still sticks out of my head because I was like, what is this craziness? But then, moving here afterwards, that was something I knew I would never get used to. But I knew I had to do it. But I remember thinking, like, if I had to do this for more than a year or two, I don't know if I'd be here. And luckily, like, my schedules were able to like be flexible a little bit, so I could avoid the rush hour.
Yeah,
but that was the biggest shock to me when I was younger, and even today.
Yeah, in my case, it was like multiple things that hit me all pretty much at that same time.
Oh yeah.
First of all is tatemae. For people who don't know what that is, it's basically the mask that you wear in front of people so that there is harmony in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll put it that way. So because everyone's doing it, especially in Tokyo, because everybody does tatemae all the time, it makes it difficult, one, to make like a real deal friend, not like a acquaintance, but somebody actually can be you want to talk to and hang out with. And eventually I just realized, okay, it's not something that they're like that all the time. It just takes longer. So you have to meet that person multiple times for them to sort of let their guard down. Yeah. But in the beginning, they have that tatemae to make sure that there's the harmony because they're concerned that something, for example, if they're straight up, they might say something that might upset someone.
Yeah.
Which of course is being extremely polite, right?
Yeah.
And then as they start to get to know you, then they'll experiment or, trial and error, see maybe this statement, they'll laugh. And then, of course, we have this kind of stuff in America too, or in English in general, but it's much more extreme in Japan.
Yeah.
And
Tiptoeing.
in the beginning, it was, yeah, exactly. In the beginning, it was super hard for me because, I'm a blunt person, or at least I used to be. And so I would say something and people just look at me like shocked. Yeah, so it was just really hard for me. And then the other one is the politeness levels. So you have keigo, which is like polite Japanese, and then you have the not keigo, which is like regular speech, right? And then I had a kind of not very hard time, but I had trouble deciding if I'm talking to a person, should I use mas or is it okay to use ru? Should I use des or should I just speak colloquially?
Yeah.
And depending on who you use it with, you might have a stronger relationship with quickly or not, right? And you kind of have to be able to read the air with that person the way that Japanese can do very well with each other. But as a foreigner, it was hard for me in the beginning.
This is interesting. I want to say something real quick here because this is something I've been thinking a lot about recently. Like, it takes a long time. Yeah, it definitely took me a long time. I can't remember, probably over the last, only few years or so where I'm really having daily conversations with people and knowing when it feels weird to use des or when it's not weird to use it. But the most recent thing was like with my host family that I lived with for 2 months in the summer when I studied abroad in Kobe, Japan. They're from Kansai, they're from Kobe. Mm-hmm. And I just met them recently. And this was 2010. So it's been 14 years I've known these people. They're super close with me. But I remember like speaking with them recently, and it was and the father never spoke English. And only recently, just this year, in the last 2 months, when I met them recently, I started speaking to the father really comfortably in Japanese, like for the first time in 14 years. And I remember wanting to really use des and mas, so I was saying it a lot. And then basically what he said in Japanese was like, "Hey, Devin, stop saying des and mas. Come on, you're family now. Don't stop saying that." So it's like, me wanting to project what I've always wanted to project, which is like showing respect and distance, but then them really feeling like, "Man, come on, stop doing that." And I was like, "Oh yeah, okay." To really be conscious of it.
So since we already touched on like what it's like the difficulties or the challenges to make friends, at least in Tokyo, like would you say it is or was difficult to make friends because of these things like tatemae, for example?
Well, the first thing is like I mentioned earlier, I was living in a share house. So that is automatically a source of people who are Japanese and also people who are not Japanese. So it was very easy and natural, of course, to make friends because that's what that place is for. You meet people who are open, Japanese people who are open and wanting to meet new people, especially foreigners, of course. And then foreigners who are basically in the same situation as you, wanting to meet people and socialize. So yeah, that for me personally was never... I never got to know anyone basically except through that network or that group of people. Also, the biggest thing for me the whole time was having my close friends growing up from childhood from Saipan, like you and Kato, and those being here and us hanging out and never feeling like I was just always being comfortable because it was with you guys.
Yeah, in my case, like most of the new people that I meet casually tend to either be my kids' classmates' families through PTA or my wife's dance students' parents through events. But as far as making friends goes, when I first moved here, a lot of the people that I met, they were interested in becoming friends with me because they want to learn how to speak English, not because they actually wanted to be friends.
Yeah, there was a few people that I met outside of the share house, or that were also kind of, I felt the same way. Where like, they were just talking to me because like, yeah, man, come on, it would be good for us to hang out, and love to speak English too. Like, dude, all right, man, this is good for you. I'll let you know when I have some time for that. So I definitely had that experience for sure.
Yeah. But then also, if you think about it, like I didn't come here for cultural exchange. I came here because of my wife, right? As I clarified earlier, or as I stated earlier.
Yeah.
And then you came here basically to get in touch with your roots. So I can see how in your case, you would be more open to that. Maybe more open than I am, or I was. And nowadays, because my Japanese is much better than it used to be, I'm like down for whatever. But yeah, that's how it was.
Yeah.
Did you experience any homesickness when you first got here?
I didn't. And if you asked me this like a few years ago or so, maybe I might say yes, but it's weird because, I mean, to be honest with you, like just in the past, I don't know, year or two, I've really been feeling like homesickness feelings. So it's like, if I think back to that time, I didn't have the feelings that I'm having now for some reason. So I would say no. Yeah, I didn't have homesickness at that time, especially now that I know what that feels like.
Yeah, I think I experienced it a lot, especially because I come from a big family and I'm pretty close with a lot of the people in my family.
Yeah.
And then also my closest friends were in Saipan at the time. You were one of them. The only like real deal friend that I had when I came here was Kato. Now you are here, Hero's here, Skoi's here.
Basically our whole crew.
Yeah, our whole crew basically is here. All right, so you didn't experience homesickness, but like, were there any kind of like, let's say for example, foods or comforts from home that you wanted to have in Japan that were really hard to find, but you found a way?
No, man, I have to say no, because like, I don't know. I was just so like kind of focused, I guess, on trying to make a life, start a life out here. Even in my off hours, like when I was just relaxing and doing whatever, even at that time, I was thinking of like just obsessed with how to make things work out here. So yeah, I didn't really, and I love Japanese food so much. So I didn't really have anything I was missing.
Yeah, for me, it was just bacon. I mean, it's going to go to food, but like crispy bacon and big steaks. And I don't mean like sirloin, because in Japan, for some reason, sirloin is still like the number one sold steak. I'm talking about ribeye steaks. So ribeye and porterhouse or T-bone, those are hard to get here. Even up to now, like finding crispy bacon, it's hard. You either make it yourself or you buy it from online.
Yeah.
And it's not worth it because it's too expensive. I mean, like the meatguy.jp sells I think it's Swedish bacon that crisps up when you fry it. It's like 7 slices for like $20. It's like, come
That's
on,
like
man.
For special occasion.
Yeah, right. But when you're eating bacon, it's like a cheeseburger or breakfast.
Yeah.
So you don't want it to be that expensive. But then also TV shows. So like my way of getting around not having access to like the movies and TV shows was, I don't think I should say. So I'm not. But let's just say I found a way. So let's move on to like closer to the present. So when did living in Japan for you start to actually feel like home? Like, was it when your Japanese got better? Or did you find like a local spot that you like to go every night? Or did you make a really serious friend or something like that?
Man, that's a really good question. Man, I think it's really hard for me to answer that question. I don't know. Like,
okay, so let me go first then.
Yeah.
But like in my case, I've been here with my wife since day one with our daughter. And now we've had multiple kids here. And then I'm really close with my in-laws and have been since I got here.
Yeah.
So I have my family here and I have my family back in Saipan. And even when I go to Saipan, of course, I still feel like it's my home. I don't get to see my family so much anymore because we're much older now. And a lot of my younger cousins, and for example, they all have their own families and they're busy. So I don't really get to see them.
Yeah.
So I only really get to see them if there's some kind of family event while I'm there.
Yeah.
So like I went last year for my brother's wedding.
Yeah.
So that one I got to see everybody in a single night.
Yeah.
And then it was my stepdad's birthday. So we had a birthday party at my grandma's house and, we're having a barbecue underneath a mango tree. So it's like, you imagine tropical paradise. That's it, right?
Mm-hmm.
With family.
Yeah.
That was awesome. So I think I want to go back very often, but I don't want to stay for long.
Yeah. So it's like your concept of home has changed.
Yeah, in a way. Especially because everybody's grown up now and there's less time.
And also what you mentioned too is that's true. It's like you were sort of in a different situation than me too, where you already had started a family and had already been very close with your in-laws. Whereas me, it's different because that only started for me recently. So yeah, I mean, maybe that's why it feels different for me.
I think it's probably, for you, I think it'll probably feel more like home once you get really close with your in-laws and you and your wife really have been married for a while. And then possibly even if you guys decide to have kids. One thing I forgot to say earlier is one of the things that like was challenging for me when I first came here was the noise, man.
Oh.
Because this apartment before had like single pane windows. And anytime a car passes, because we live along the highway, and anytime a car passes by, which is constantly, you're going to hear it. And it was very hard to sleep at night.
Oh my gosh.
And then they upgraded it to the dual pane windows that have the soundproofing.
Yeah.
And so now if I have like a decent pair of earplugs on, I can sleep very good.
even with the dual pane, you need earplugs?
Yeah, because every few hours, there's an ambulance or a fire truck or police with their sirens. And sometimes if there's a fire, there's like multiple trucks, right? And then you can hear them because it's a highway going straight. You can hear them from like a mile or further away.
Yeah.
And it's in the middle of the city, which has multiple stoplights on the way, right? So the siren is just going for like 15 minutes.
Dude, I know exactly what you mean, because one thing I forgot to add to my little or like how it is now is like it's also dead quiet out here at night when I'm walking back home. So it's like that combination of big sky with stars shining at night and it being quiet, like super
Oh,
quiet.
you actually have stars at night?
Sometimes when there are stars at night.
When there are stars at night, I don't know what that means.
Oh, I mean, not cloudy or whatever. When it's a nice night when you can see the stars and I'm walking and I'm like I hear my footsteps and it's just quiet. That is really a big part of me feeling like I'm back home, or feeling like I'm comfortable. When I used to live in Tokyo too, it's like you just don't notice how much that adds to your not being able to relax.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, if I step outside my balcony right now, I'll be like, oh, there's a star. Oh, wait, that's a helicopter. Never mind. It's like almost not there. Let's talk about let me ask you, how has the rhythm of daily life in Japan become familiar to you? Because you said it doesn't feel like home.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, you have to get into the groove of living here. So like, what's your thing?
Yes.
Go for it.
All it is wake up Monday, take the train to work Monday morning, take the train back, cook, eat, take a walk outside with my wife, clean up, go to sleep. And again, the next day, Tuesday, I go to the gym. So Tuesday, my wife cooks and I go to the gym, come home, same thing. Wednesday, same thing. Thursday, same thing. Friday, same thing. Weekends, try to relax, do something else. That's it. Yeah. So that's the rhythm. And it's very, very routine.
Yeah, you make a good point about the gym, because for me, a heavy chunk of my daily routine, or a big chunk of my daily routine, is centered around stress management. Mm-hmm. Because of course, Tokyo life is very fast paced, and then you have to be so polite all the time and be respectful all the time, which you're talking about tatemae, right? So you have to kind of not be yourself so often. Mm-hmm. That my way of relieving a lot of that stress is weightlifting here in the house. And then before COVID, it was like, if I stay in, for example, this is my office. And if I stay in here for like more than let's say 3 or 4 hours, like I get this like antsy feeling, like I want to get out of here. I don't want to be in this little box. But then COVID happened and we weren't allowed to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And then during COVID, I spent 10 months straight without ever walking out my front door. So that's what I was talking about, how to make sure that. So I started, I accidentally like got lost with what I was saying. But to keep our kids from getting sick, we decided that only one of us should go out and do the shopping and stuff.
Yeah.
So my wife hates staying indoors. So I let her be the one to go out, and I stayed home all day, every day for 10 months straight, never even walking outside.
Wow.
And then after that, when I went out, I was like, I don't know, man. Like, I really like this room. It has everything I need. So now my routine is pretty much like, if I don't have anything to do outside, I don't go outside. So I'll just do my workouts and then check off my to-do list for that day before work starts, go to work. And then afterwards, if I have any parenting duties, like that's how it is for me.
Do you ever struggle with because I know some people talk about this where they work from home, and it's just hard, kind of blending the work and the play in the same space. Because I know I couldn't do that. I really need to separate it. So, I mean, do you ever struggle with that?
I did in the beginning. That's the exact question I wanted to answer to myself, is how can I make this space become a work and play space that they don't conflict with each other, that to the point where it stresses me out? First one, make the environment really feel peaceful for me. That means light colors, wood grain, and balanced lighting in the room. So not like one single light source just blaring down at you, right? So I have this light here. I have a light behind my monitor. I have a light on my left. That one I don't really turn on often, but the one behind me here, this little ball, this is on all the time. So I have these 3 lights, the one behind the monitor, this one, and then this one right in front of me, and then the one behind me on all the time. And then I'll have the central light in the room on also. And for some reason, for me, having less shadows in the room makes me feel more relaxed.
Yeah.
Then the second thing, everything that I want to do has to be very easy access with minimal preparation. So if I want to access my music, you can see right here on the screen, my preamp is here. So, and then I have my keyboard right above it. You can't really see. But if I want to record music, I can just pull my keyboard out. It's already connected on USB. I just open up Logic Pro and then boom, I can just start recording. Speakers are right there. And then if I want to play video games, I have my PS5 controllers just there on the side. I can just grab them, press the on button on it, turns on, and I can just switch to the PS5 input. So what I like to do is when I'm in work mode, all the lights are on.
Oh, I see.
And then
I see.
When I'm in play mode, I turn off the main light and it's just the accent lighting.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I get it. I was gonna say like the lighting seems really important because like when you said that and just not one light from the ceiling blaring down at you, that's been something that I've been kind of annoyed by recently where, you know, we're trying to get like lamps and stuff because it's either on or off.
Yeah, I just feel like if you have that central light blaring down on you, it kind of feels like you're in an interrogation room.
Yeah. We really want to get a lamp so it's less intense. But yeah, that makes sense. Like just change the lighting to change the mood. I've never tried that before because we only have one light.
Here's a pretty serious question though. And that kind of brings to mind, since we talked about the challenges when we first moved here, are there still any challenges that exist for you now that remain from before?
Yeah. Has to do with reading and writing Japanese. That's the biggest thing. Every single time I still have to say, oh, can I write this in Romaji?
Romaji, yeah.
All the official stuff is still a challenge. And it could have gone away if I spent the time to get it done and learn it, but never did. Is it the same for you?
Not necessarily. For example, tatemae, like I don't really have a problem with it anymore. It was huge for me for like the first, maybe I would say even like the first 10 years.
Yeah.
And then after that, just somehow I just started making friends. I guess my Japanese level reached the point where I can actually read more than just what they're saying, but read also their intentions.
Oh, I thought you were going to say read writing. I mean, you mean like, reading intentions and reading nuance and whatever.
Yeah. And then as far as reading goes, earlier this year, I would say in January, I started doing Duolingo every day.
Nice.
And just to see what's going to happen, because I speak Japanese every day. My wife doesn't even speak English. So I'm like, okay, if I use Duolingo to get my brain to think about Japanese more often, it should rub off on my conversation. And it has like a lot. Like I'll be using words that I didn't even know before Duolingo.
Oh man, that sounds good.
In my daily conversation with people. And then even listening. Like I told you about the taxi situation that I had a few days ago. I think if I didn't do Duolingo, I probably wouldn't be able to communicate as quickly as I was able to with that guy. Because it's just is this
podcast sponsored by Duolingo?
No, it's not sponsored.
That makes me want to download it.
It's not sponsored by Duolingo.
Try it out again.
I just want to say like language apps in general, whatever you find, if you're living in Japan and you're having a struggle, or if you're struggling with learning the language, get a language app. And then hopefully you have daily situations where you can practice your Japanese. Because if you're not practicing it, I don't think there's going to be any value, any real world value for you.
That brings to mind, I mean, I didn't do Duolingo, but one of the biggest things that helped me was this book called Remembering the Kanji. I think it's a pretty famous book, but it doesn't teach you how to read kanji, but it teaches you how to write it, which actually helps me because I could, look, you still got to understand the reading and the meaning, but you can recognize a lot more and guess a lot more.
Yeah.
And the book is really fun. It gives you this system to remember kanji. So it's very good. So yeah, if I continued to actually learning how to read and understand meaning, it would be really helpful. But I didn't. I stopped there. But yeah, and it's return on investment is high for stuff like that. Duolingo, I guess.
If you're listening to this podcast and also live in Japan, what are or were your challenges when you moved here? And what were your solutions? Let us know in the comments section and We might just do an episode focused on the various challenges one might face when moving to Japan and the solutions we find that work best for us. And with that said, that's it for today's episode. And until next time, excuse me, Masen, and see you.
See ya.
XQ Sumimasen.